So, did you have anything that you wanted to talk about?
Yeah, actually, it's not a question. Um, it's a statement of my current perplexity, which is kind of a repeat. And this maybe am I asking you to solve this? No, because I think I know. Well, I'm pretty sure I know exactly what you'll say, and I don't like it. So So in the last Corbin class that I just taught, and I think that there's some people who will listen to both of these. So I will say that it was Thursday, the something of February, the 12th, maybe 13th, and I did a kind of what ended up being a big summary of Corbin in terms of um, ideas in his philosophy, theology, which emphasize the continuities between the immanent, secular, everyday world and the worlds up above. That it, so that in the vision of Corbin's theology that I tried to articulate, there's no gaps that have to be jumped over in the following sense. Corbin was something of a mystic. Ibn Arabi, one of his heroes, was an extraordinary mystic. And I'm not either one, nor do I happen to think I'll ever be either one. And yet, I think that the kinds of approaches to reality that Corbin is explaining are perfectly relevant down here in normal everyday life, particularly with regard to the arts. But that so the and there we spent a whole hour and a half on this, and there are lots of aspects of Corbin's thinking that suggest to me that he saw all of reality from God all the way down to rocks as being a part of a huge continuum. So there's angels up there, and although he doesn't, well, yes, he does talk about the paranormal in passing, in a few instances. There's no UFOs in there, but I think the point would be that if there had been, Ibn Arabi would have thought, sure, God can do whatever the fuck he wants. He wants, a little green man. I got no problem. He can do anything he wants. Little garden gnomes coming to life, fine. It wouldn't have bothered because they didn't have Western rationalist materialism. They just didn't have that. It was just the self-manifestation of the divine. Anyway, so I was very happy finally getting myself a real view of of at least temporarily of how I understand this whole structure of Corbin. And damn you, you were in the back of my head that whole class because all I could think was, damn it. Jeremy's looking over my shoulder and saying, yeah, well, that's really nice, but you're just going to have to let it all go to get the truth. You're just going to have to say poof. And so in the context that I was setting all of this, I had to I had to say that my understanding of your fundamental point is, and maybe this is where you can actually be useful to me here, is that at the end of the day, there's a radical gap between any kind of knowledge that we can have and the truth. But let me pause just a minute and say that in Corbin's telling, mystical knowledge of the highest order, and maybe I'm wrong about Corbin, but in my understanding and my telling of it on Thursday, there's a continuity all the way up to the absolute, transcendent vision of the God, the largest awakening you could possibly have, and that there is therefore a kind of path. And then you were in the back of my head saying, "Yeah, no." You're just gonna have to drop that whole thing. So that was my conundrum when I finished the class. I was thought, okay, I get to talk to Jeremy tomorrow and see if he's got anything to say about this.
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is like I love how when you started talking earlier, you were like, I'm sick of I've been out of talking about these crazy impossible things. I want to get I got back into Corbin, who's talking about the angel out in front and all this sane stuff.
Yeah, same stuff. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Not at all high strangeness events at
No.
all. But I mean, so um, the truth of whatever he is saying, I am sure, is quite possibly gotten to through his path.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, if you're talking about truth per se, that's different than talking about,
Yeah.
what these people are talking about. So I don't think. I mean, yeah, in other words, like the little voice of me in the back of your head going, "Yeah, but this isn't truth," is like, well, the answer to that is, well, okay, it's not, but it's this,
Hmm.
and this is interesting too, and so I'm
Hmm.
I'm getting to the bottom of this.
Hmm.
You know, does that help at
Okay.
all or no?
Well, actually, it does. I'm such a child. You just give. I mean, we all are, but you just Jeremy has just given me permission to continue with my life's work.
Well, yeah. Oh, well, and on that
You
note,
know?
I do want to say I want to make it clear because it seems like I say this and it's never clear. But like when I say don't do anything, I don't mean like there's nothing to be done, there's no path. That doesn't mean drop everything because that's you dropping something as a path because I just told you that there is no path. And you're like, well, then what do I do? Okay, I'll drop everything. And it's like, no, keep
No,
being you. Like that's it. Just keep being,
no.
that
Yeah.
it has nothing to do with that. But so yeah, I don't know. I mean, it before you met me or read my books or whatever, you weren't reading Corban or Ibn Arabi or any of these folks for the truth. You were reading them because of what they were saying, and what
Yeah.
they said
Yeah. It was
was
really
it.
exciting. Yeah. It was really
So
cool.
what's wrong
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
why can't the two coexist?
Yeah. Okay. That's I am I am pleased and relieved and joyful because of course that must be right. Of course that must be right. And um I I'm in no position to I'm still way down here. What am I
But
trying to
see, no,
say?
no, no, you're not way down here. See, here's the thing: it's not hierarchical either. There's not
Yeah,
like
yeah,
all of this stuff is down to Jeremy. All of this stuff is down here, and there's the truth that's the step above. It's like no, there is a thing that we all are
yeah,
that we can when the brain drops us, the body awakens to, which is consciousness per se, which is outside of time and not a psychological construct, but becomes the psychological construct.
mhm,
Uh, but that doesn't negate this world of the imaginal and all of that stuff.
yeah,
But it
yeah,
means
yeah,
that
yeah.
insofar as the people who talk about those things say that that is this, if they do, they are wrong. That's the only thing I'm
It's the
saying.
only thing you're saying. I think it may slip from my grasp, but I think I really see that now. And um, here's the thing that was interesting to me, and may be interesting to you. It was like I had some, and again, it's like the matchbook thing. I had some really subtle experiences. I don't know when they were, and but um, and this is the point I want to make is that every time I try to talk about these small, subtle experiences, I can't because they can't be spoken about.
Hmm.
um, and as I was not thinking about them as they were happening and realizing that nothing could be said about them, I was thinking of you and the idea that hit me in your work. I don't know if it was the first time I'd ever heard it. I'm sure it wasn't, but it somehow hit me in your work that whatever you do with your meat brain, poof, it's beside the point, you know. And it was like, oh my God, that must be true. That's why you hooked me. And in whatever this little experience, and I think as I remember, it may have happened once or twice, it was so totally beyond talking about that I thought, oh, maybe that's like a little tiny version of it, you know. And it's kind of lost its sparkle for me, and I should spend more time shutting up and trying to get it to come back. But it was really important, and I kept trying to bring it into class in order to point to something that can't be talked about. And every time I tried, I couldn't talk about it.
Hmm.
So it was like, oh, maybe that's Jeremy's problem. He's got this thing that he can't talk about. And all he can do is say, well, it's just, yeah, there it is.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't know. Sort of. It's just, again, it's the problem of, God, I was just getting into it with someone on Blue Sky about this today.
Don't do that.
No, but of just like, here's my conundrum is like, I'm saying something, because he was wondering, or she, I think it's a he, was wondering if I'm caveating without saying it, if it's an unspoken caveat of like, this is all my opinion, or this is, about me, but not you. And it's like, no, sort of, but not like the caveat is like, if I'm saying something that I know to be true, and it comes from a place that the Western mind can't know is true because it transcends it. So there's like an internal logic, but lots of things have internal logic. Rationalizations have an internal logic. Sometimes beliefs have internal logic. So you can't know whether, like, it does you no good that I'm telling you certain things, but I know them to be true. But again, so that's the problem. Is like, yeah, there's no way for me to say that without me sounding like douchey.
Yeah.
Like I know something that you cannot know.
Yeah.
Well, that's something. Someone lying would tell you too. So I get it.
That's right. Yeah.
So what do you do? Like, what do you do except just acknowledge all of this and just have it be out there that that's the case? But in terms of like, is there anything that is inarticulable? I think the only thing that feels like it's inarticulable is how useless all of the things that I do articulate are, because when sitting silently and the kundalini comes alive and the magic starts to happen, the complete like satiation and relaxedness and like wholeness, completeness, whatever that I feel, really calls into question why I'm talking about it, except that I've got to talk about something, because it's so the talking about it is so like removed, cold, not connected, because it's not alive for you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I think so. But that's a different thing. Yeah.
I guess that's a different thing. Yeah. But I guess it just gets to like, so that's how real it is for me. But if you hear me talking about it and you hear this voice and I can be flippant and whatever, then it may be easy, just like we were talking before about how it's easy to like keep reality a certain way, even though you're experiencing paranormal. I think it's easy for people to stay themselves as they're hearing the thing that should be shattering them, because it's easy to see me as just like you. When the douchey thing that I have to say out loud now, I guess, is that like I am just like you, but also this other thing. But I don't want to just be this other thing. I want everyone to be this other thing. Not that I want, you know what I mean? Like we all have to do it. And I see that and I try to articulate that, but there's no way to do that without sounding like an asshole. Like they're just like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
How can I
Okay.
not sound like the people I hate by saying something like that out loud?
Yeah,
You
yeah. No,
know? Like,
no,
what do you
no.
do?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
These are different problems, but
Well, it's true. It's the problem of all religion, maybe. I'm surely there are religions that are started by charlatans, but people who have these genuine experiences of this kind of positivity that they would like to extend out to everyone, that's pretty great. But it's really hard to do. Um, One of the things I wanted to ask you is about the continuance or lack thereof of these experiences. Does this still happen to you?
oh, well that's actually okay. So sort of like because we were just talking about like go ahead and be interested in it and all of
Yeah,
that. Like it still happens to me. So, but I just look at it differently now. So, for instance, the thing that's happening to me now is there's been a period of like sort of poltergeisty activity stuff happening, but to my mind, it's like it's very Jungian. It's like I am now writing this Kundalini book, and I'm just now getting into the ghosts of Gettysburg. I'm going to write about ghosts, which I don't normally do. And oh, lo and behold, here comes the atmosphere acting up. You know what I mean?
okay.
So
Yeah,
things like
yeah, yeah,
that, and things
yeah.
like getting conked over my head with a synchronicity, two synchronicities just a couple of days ago, that are like, okay, I know what my next book is, even though I don't want to write a next book, and I'm not done with this book. And it's like, okay, now I know I got to
Oh,
fucking write this. I know exactly how it's going to start, and I know what it's going to be about. You know what I mean?
yeah,
So I get conked over the head with
okay.
the imaginal or the whatever that you're thinking I'm saying is lesser, but I'm using it differently. I'm no longer
Yeah.
thinking like, oh my god, this is I'm not amazing, and this is ghosts, and this is
Hmm.
I've got to now take up my EVP thing, and like, no,
Hmm.
this is all a flare up of some sort of synchronistic stuff.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
although interestingly, my wife thought it had to do with the plane that plane crashing into the helicopter crashing into the plane,
Mm.
which is not something she would normally say. Like, oh, I think this bunch of stuff happening here in Hawaii to you is a premonition about that other thing that seems to have nothing to do with it. So I thought that was interesting that she thought that. But I don't necessarily think that. So I don't know. But yes, so the short answer is yes,
Short
but it's
answer
very
is
specifically like the universe saying, "Oh, you're interested in this again? Here you go. Here's
okay.
something."
Okay.
You
And
know?
yeah, that makes sense to me. And it reminds me of one of the things that I'm interested in, and as an active practice of paying attention, so you get synchronicities and they're pretty, and just because you've had the experiences you've had, it's like, oh, wow, it doesn't flip you out, but they're interesting and useful. And I am all I want to say is that I think it is useful for people like me, to learn to pay attention to things that might just be as simple as, little synchronicities that in the past you would have just not even paid any, you might have noticed it but paid no attention. And now I try to notice, and I'd be really excited if I had a really, really big, exciting one.
Yeah.
But you know, but I think, but I'm convinced, rightly or wrongly, that we stand on our own way for being receptive to all sorts of things that we just don't notice, that we might in another culture just take for granted as being
Right.
what we call paranormal or synchronous or whatever.
But I
And
also
and
think it's
that
a
and that you could train yourself to be sensitive to that kind of thing.
well, and one thing you could try to be sensitive to too, and you out there in listener land,
Yeah.
is like if you have synchronicities, try to figure out. Don't just always assume that the synchronicity is like I said about the book telling you to go in a certain direction. I
Mm.
think sometimes it is, but sometimes it is just happening. Like it's about oh, you're in this now, and so these things are happening, and try to decipher that if possible. You know, like what's
Yeah,
an actual synchronicity leading me to something, and what's a synchronicity saying, oh, you're mired in this, and for some reason, somehow it comes up in the atmosphere. You know.
yeah, and I mean, I should write them all down. I mean, I'm supposed to be a scientist. I should write them down. But the one that I had most recently, which was actually pretty impressive, one of my students had reminded me that Emmanuel Coach's new book on the philosophy of the home was out, and I know Coach, and we'd read his stuff before. I like it very much, and I thought, oh, I should do a book. I should do a course on his book sometime. And she mentioned it, and I got it. And then I went to Brazil to do, weeks later, I went to Brazil to do the Buiti. And after the ceremony was over, I went to stay in the little town Pissinguaba, and I went to stay with Tinko at his house. And there, when we opened the door to his house, was a Portuguese edition of Emmanuel Coach's book on the table, signed by Emmanuel Coach. And there it was. I thought, oh, well, that's okay. Bing. And it turns out the guy I was staying with knows him because he comes to Brazil quite frequently. And I thought, well, guess I'll have to do the course. And did I change my behavior? Was I stunned? No, I mean, but it was like, okay, I'll do the course. I definitely should be doing this. So it was the latter. It was just the universe conspiring to agree with me.
Right.
Yeah, it was. But it's kind of strange, really. Um,
Yeah, I mean, unless it's you, you know, again, you are the universe and the universe is you. Is it you
yeah,
talking to yourself through this
okay,
extended physics that we've been talking about,
yeah,
this malleability?
right. But
Don't know.
either way,
Yeah,
it's not something that I would have paid any attention to in the past. And
right.
it's just something that happened. I mean, it's still just something that happened, but still,
Well, have you found, like, since the Iboga stuff, have you found stuff like that amping up or any sort of high strangeness-y stuff amping up or no?
nothing really high strangenessy. I can say without having written them down that I've noticed. I have no. I think all I can say is that I have noticed synchronicities a little bit more that I wouldn't have noticed in the past. But I have absolutely no sense that there have been more of them. That's what I would say. And I think I mean, with regard to the Iboga, I would say that I think it works on me. It's not done with me. I don't think it's done even preparing me. I wouldn't be at all surprised if I had to go through a really nasty experience again. I think I'm still recalcitrant in her eyes. I still need some pummeling. And the pummeling and the work has all been right up until the last moment last time has all been at the level of what I guess I'd have to say is, psychosomatic psychology, except the last thing that I saw did feel um outside of all human anything,
Mm,
you know, and transcendent in that peculiar way, and not much can be said about it. So I think that I'm still being worked on. And
mm.
if anything more extravagant in the way of synchronicities or paranormal things, if anything like that were to happen, and they do for other people, I'm not there yet.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So you're saying that for other people, they have a psychedelic journey and then it follows them home and continues to work on them?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yes, but in ways that are more maybe paranormal or synchronistic than merely the kind of embodied and psychological kinds of things that are
Well,
that it, that
that's
it
interesting because
did for
that's,
me.
I mean, you can say the same thing about UFO sightings. A lot of people then start having paranormal activity or they see a being or something and then the house starts to become ghostly. Like what? That's interesting.
Yeah, no, it is interesting, and I won't. Let's see, what could I won't share any personal details of people, but yeah, things happen, and it changes people's visions. It changes the eye who is seeing the world, and therefore the
Right.
world changes in response. And my only I kind of balked a little. This is revealing of me, and also lots of yeah. When you said psychedelics, I wanted to immediately say, oh no, iboga isn't a psychedelic. Um, which, of course, broadly speaking, it is. It's a psychoactive plant medicine. Um, but everyone that I know who knows about it puts it in a kind of separate category from other psychedelics, at least because, and this is all secondhand knowledge. I'm reporting. Um, Many or all of the other psychedelics tend to be lighter and to raise people up, whereas Iboga tends to be darker and to take people down.
Hmm.
And it's and it's known to be pretty powerful in whatever way. So it's in a it seems to be in a class by itself. There must be other such.
Well, I heard that about salvia too. That salvia, a lot of people don't consider that to be a psychedelic. It's I don't know what you would call it, a poison. I don't know. I think
Yeah,
like just a good old fashioned poisoning
poison.
because
Yeah.
I guess it's so dark. The experiences tend to skew so dark and scary that I don't know. I guess for some reason, well, would it be that you're not necessarily getting anything from it, not a communication and not a nothing that's helping you in any way? It's just kind of going to hell. Like
It
is that the
doesn't sound
difference?
it doesn't
I don't
sound attractive to
know.
me.
It
Yeah.
doesn't sound good.
No, I mean the thing. Did I tell this story to our people here? I mean, there were. I probably did, so you can cut it out if I already told this. But there were two guys at my first and then the second or second and third Iboga. Let's call it Wheaty initiations. That had been just the second time they brought their families because it had been so powerfully, positively transformative for them. The second time, the one guy's family was his wife, so he brought his wife, and the other guy, he had a teenage son and a wife and a little baby, and they all came, and the wife and the wife and the teenage son did the ceremony. The baby did not, although the baby was present. Um, because both of these guys, and then they're not, they're not unusual. I mean, people have these extraordinarily transformative, positive experiences. I'm working on it. I haven't had one of those yet. I think I've got. Well, and I think that's super interesting because whatever's going on um, with this sacred plant medicine, um, it it's different for every person. And, I try to prevent myself, usually successfully, from lapsing into biochemistry mode and neurology mode, because it wouldn't be very useful to think that way. I mean, of course it has effects on the brain, duh, but so does thinking 1 + 1 = 2, and that happens to be true. So, you can't worry about the brain effects. But whatever it is about that particular plant medicine, it's super enlightening and powerfully therapeutic. It's really something, and I'm curious to see what happens next. And it has had positive effects on my life, and taking those effects and those experiences seriously is possible for me, at least in part, because of all those years of reading Henri Corbin and then encountering Kripal and your work. And, so it's like, oh, this crazy shit is real in a way that I should, pay attention to it. And so for me, it's all part of this um, cosmological awakening, which can but need not include plant medicines.
Hmm. Okay.
It's my thing.
Okay.
I mean, you got your thing. I wish I had your thing, but because it'd be cheaper.
That's why you don't have my thing.
Yeah.
You can't wish for it.
Yeah.
My thing. I wish it were my thing. If it were my thing, I could shut up about it. I'd just be like, I got this thing. It's my thing.
Yeah.